Hello and welcome. This is Angie with thecountrysheetcottage.net. Today's video is sponsored by Michaels and Cricut, and I am going to talk about the new Infusible ink product from Cricut that's available exclusively at Michaels starting on June 21st. So if you've not seen this, it's simply amazing. So what is it? First of all, it is both infusible ink transfer sheets in both solid colors as well as patterns. And then they also have sets of infusible ink pens and also markers in various colors. So I've got a sampling of product to try. And then they also have their own blanks that you can put it on. So a blank is something like a tote or a t-shirt or coasters. We're going to make all three of those in this video. But you want to look for a seal that says that it's infusible ink compatible. So, infusible ink. So is it sublimation? It is like sublimation, but this is a completely new product on the market. So you can cut it with your Cricut machine, and then it gives you the appearance of like you had inked your shirt. But you cut it with your machine, you apply it with your Cricut Easy Press. Easy Press 2 is recommended, but you could also use the original Easy Press. But you need something that goes up to a really high heat, and then it infuses that ink into the fabric of whatever you're putting it on, whether it be a shirt or a tote bag or coasters, and it has to have some kind of coating on it. So you couldn't just run to the store and buy a cotton shirt or a ceramic tile and expect the infusible ink to work, because it will not. It may transfer, but it might wash right out. So in order to get that ink infused into the material and locked into place, you need to look for those Cricut approved blanks that are also exclusive to Michaels, so you can find those there as well. So let's dive in. Let's see how to use this product first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the projects we made at the end and a little bit about what you can expect here on YouTube in the future. So today is all about Cricut Infusible ink. So what are the products themselves? So the infusible ink itself comes two ways. So it comes in transfer sheets, and these are both solid, like this one, or you can also get a pattern like this one. Then it also comes in pens and markers. So this is an example of those. There are different colors, and then, like I said, there's also pens, which are thinner, and markers, which are thicker. Then there is also heat-resistant tape, which you'll need, again with the Cricut brand. And then there are also blanks. You can tell if a substrate is compatible with infusible ink by this logo. So if it says compatible with infusible ink with this logo, then you can use it with the transfer sheets and the pens and markers. So what do they have? So they have coasters, a couple different types. This is the one I'm using today. They have tote bags, again, a couple different types and sizes. This is the one I'm going to be using. And shirts, onesies, that type of thing. I'm going to use this adult women's shirt, but there's men's, there's all tons of sizes, and even, like I said, down to babies. And then what else will you need in addition to the products shown here? So you'll also need a lint roller. So it's important that there not be any lint on your surface, so a lint roller helps with that. You might need some extra cardstock. So this is just plain white cardstock. And then you may need some butcher paper. So this is just a plain butcher paper, and I just have one sheet here. But you'll need it as well. And then you'll need your Easy Press and your Easy Press mat. So let's first get into some projects and kind of talk about how the infusible ink works itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is open these packages and cut some designs. So let's open a couple of those so you can kind of see what it looks like before I cut it. And then I'll cut some designs using my Cricut machine. So these can be used on either the Cricut Maker or the Cricut Explorer Air 2. Either one. And the pens themselves as well. The pens and markers themselves can be used on either machine as well. You just put the pens in the pen slot, and the infusible ink sheets, it's actually similar to a sheet of vinyl or iron-on in that you put it directly on the mat. So inside of the infusible ink box, there is some additional butcher paper. You might need some extra, so you might want to keep some on hand, but there is some inside your package. And then this is the patterned version. So you can see all these gorgeous patterns and colors, and it comes in sheets. with a backing, just like a vinyl or iron-on. So the first thing I want to note is that these sheets aren't very bright as I get them out of my package. So they look much brighter on the package that I purchased it on. That's because after you transfer it to your substrate, it will brighten up and look more similar to what you see in the image here. So don't be scared that these don't look as bright as you had intended them to be. They will definitely brighten up. Now what you need to do is put this liner side down on your mat, and you're going to need to mirror your cuts. So similar to an iron-on where you mirror your mat before you cut it, you're going to need to mirror this. I'm going to take my mat and I'm going to put this sheet down, and this is liner side down, and then whatever design I'm going to cut, I'm going to mirror that before I cut, and then cut it out of this sheet. And as you can see, there's a 12 by 12 sheets. I'm just using my light grip mat, so either the blue or the green mat would probably work fine. So that's how you use the infusible ink sheets. One more thing to note is that you will want to make sure your hands are clean before you touch the infusible ink sheets. To make sure they're clean, free of oil, that type of thing, and you don't want to touch the sheets with dirty hands. Alright, so the pens and the markers. So what you're going to want to do with those is you're going to use plain copy paper. So this is paper that is good for a laser printer. And you just want to put that down on your mat. And then take your pens out of the package, put them in the pen slot. You're going to want to turn your lines to draw lines. If you don't know how to do that, we have a video for that, and I'll link it in the description for this video. Then you're going to want to mirror your design before drawing. So you're going to draw on this side of the paper, and then we're going to flip it over to actually put it on our substrate. So be sure to mirror your design. So for the pens, we're just going to load it into the clamp. And we've already loaded our mat with the laser paper on it. And then we'll just hit the C and let it draw our design. Once again, we have mirrored that design before we let the Cricut draw it, and that way if you have any text, it will be the right way once you transfer it to whatever substrate you're going to use. Once it's complete with one color, it'll prompt you to remove that pen and insert your next color right on your computer. So this is the infusible ink sheet, and in the same way we're going to cut it. Again, we've mirrored the design, and this time we're using the fine point blade to cut our design. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the results of what came out of our machine. So this is with the pens. So at this point, you could actually color this in with more pens or markers manually. I'm not. I'm going to leave them just as the pen drawing as it came out of the maker. So one tip when removing either of these is to remove the mat from the paper instead of the paper from the mat. So we're just going to peel that back. And now, as you can see, I've done multiple things on the one sheet of paper. So the first ones are going to be for our project, so those are cacti. The second ones are for just some experiments. You can just draw random things if you want to. And the last, it says vibes only, but it's backwards. So this is for another project that we're going to be making. When you work with the pens, you need to be sure to mirror it so that the text is backwards. Now, we can cut these out just with scissors. And I'm going to cut out each one individually. I'll actually just cut the hearts out and set those aside. And we'll talk a little bit about what I'm going to be doing with those towards the end of the video. So there's the vibes only. We'll just set that aside. And then these two are going to be on coasters. And I say two, there's 4 cactuses or cacti, but there's going to be 2 on each coaster. So we're just going to cut those down the middle. And so we have 2 for our coasters. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about the infusible ink sheets themselves. So same thing. So this is cut with my maker. And the same thing, I'm going to remove the mat from the project instead of the project from the mat. Now, you can't see the cut lines probably, but they're up in this corner. And I want to save as much of this as possible. So I don't want to waste any of this. I want to use it on some more projects. So I'm just going to use a small paper cutter here. And I'm going to trim this away. Just be sure you're away from the project. And then we can just cut. And then this can be extra that I use for a project later. And then I could also cut this way and have another small piece. So now we have our project here, and now we need to weed it. So to weed the infusible ink sheets, so you'll just need tweezers is what the recommended tool is. And I'm just going to start in the corner. And so this is a mermaid tail, and it has a word out of the center, so we'll be weeding that out. But it had a lot of excess around the edge. So one trick that you can do to not do any waste, actually cut a heart out of my excess. So then I can put that on something else later. And they actually, something we didn't talk about yet, there is a sample swatch in the infusible ink sheets. And so this heart could go on that. So if this is my first infusible ink project, I can use the sample swatch, and I can use this heart or a small piece of this that I just cut into a circle with scissors. And I can try out the infusible ink before I actually do a full project so I don't ruin my substrate. So that's kind of a tip there, is to use that. And you're not really wasting any material because that was scrap anyway, right? So I could put this right on that sample swatch and then sort of test out my settings of my easy press and how well it's going to be. Now, I need to get this word out of the center. So what they recommend is sort of bending the material so that it sort of cracks. And that cracking will start to lift your design. And we can probably get the corner now, so I can get the corner up. And I can start pulling up. Now the tweezers are for any areas that are having a hard time coming up. Then you can just grab the sheet with your tweezers and keep pulling. Now for this one I want to leave the centers of the letters in. So basically weeding is removing any part of the design that you do not want transferred to your project. So in this case I want to take the word out of the mermaid tail. So there we have our mermaid tail, and you can see that the word again was mirrored so that it will read correctly when we put it on our project. So now that we have some materials to work with, let's make a few projects. For illustration purposes, we're actually going to press one of these hearts to the swatch that comes in the infusible ink sheets. So the first thing you want to do is put a piece of cardstock down on your mat. So this just prevents any bleed through from ruining your mat, which you definitely don't want to do. And then we're just going to put the swatch that comes in the box of infusible ink. We want to put that down on the cardstock. And then we're just going to use a lint roller and remove any debris from the swatch. So this part is very important. So any debris, fibers, hairs on your substrate can ruin your transfer. So you want to be sure to do this part. And then once that's complete, we're going to put butcher paper down over the top. So this first press is just to get any moisture out of the blank. So you want to go ahead and set your easy press. So we're using the easy press 2, so we're going to do this 385, and we're going to press for about 15 seconds to get the moisture out. So you can use either the Easy Press 1 or the Easy Press 2, just depending on which one you have. You need to follow the instructions for either one. So if you're using the Easy Press 1, you're going to do a lower temperature but a longer time. If you're using the Easy Press 2, you can do it at a higher temperature because it goes up to a higher temperature. So once we remove that, we want to let the swatch cool completely before we add our infusible ink sheet. So I actually cut 2 hearts. So this way I can illustrate how the color changes. So we'll have one set, and we're going to set that to the side, and we're not going to press that at all. And then we'll have this one that will actually add to the swatch and press. So what we're going to do is put this face down, so you want the liner side up on the swatch once it cools, and then we're going to press for at 385 for 40 seconds. So you're going to do even light pressure on the handle as you press, and you don't want to move the press at all. So you want to put down the swatch, put the butcher paper on top, press with the Easy Press 2 using light pressure for 40 seconds, and don't move. So you don't want to move the Easy Press around at all, because any movement can actually blur your ink transfer, so you don't want to move it at all. And then when the beep sounds, we'll try to lift the Easy Press without moving any of our stack, so that's really important as well. So this is cold, so we're just going to add our heart liner side up. We're going to put the butcher paper on top. And then we're going to put our Easy Press down, press the button, apply light even pressure for the 40 seconds, wait for it to beep, and do not move the Easy Press during this time. So now that the Easy Press has beeped, it's ready to be removed. And once again, we're going to lift it up, straight up, not moving the stack underneath. Then we're going to put it on our base. Then we want to let this cool completely. So this is super hot right now, so we want to let this cool completely before we touch it. Alright, so our stack is cooled, so the first thing you can do is remove the butcher paper. And now we can lift the liner off of our project. So we're just going to lift that with our fingers. So there you see, we have transferred this ink to our swatch. This is what it looked like before we press it. This is what it looks like after we pressed it. So you can see the difference in the color and how much more vibrant the colors are. And it's going to be really hard to see, but the ink is actually infused into the fabric, and it doesn't sit on top like an iron-on would. So it's more like an infused ink into the fabric. Before we move on to our projects, I did want to show you this stretch you get with this stuff, and let you know the fact that right when it's complete, it's dry. You don't have to wait. It's not like ink that you would, do the silk screen. It is dry as soon as you pull that Easy Press off. It's dry and it's ready to throw in the washing machine. Like, it is ready to go just as soon as your project is complete. So that is another thing that's really nice about infusible ink. So now we can move on. We'll set that to the side, and we'll move on to some of our other projects like our coasters. So for our coasters, we want to start by removing any debris with a lint-free cloth. Then we're going to take our design that we did with the pins, and we're going to put it face down on the coaster. So on my Easy Press mat, I have a piece of butcher paper to protect it, then my coaster, then the design face down, and then the heat resistant tape that's from Cricut. You want to tape your design down so that it doesn't move. And then we want to put a piece of cardstock over the top of that. And then we're going to put our Easy Press, which has been heating to 400 degrees for 60 seconds. And this time we don't even have to touch it. We just leave it on there, 400 degrees, 60 seconds. Alright, once your beep sounds, you want to carefully lift the Easy Press straight up. Don't disturb your stack. And this is extremely hot. There's actually a burn warning on the coaster package itself. We're going to allow this to cool completely before we touch it, and then we'll take a look and see what happened underneath all this stack. The first thing you'll probably notice as you peel back the cardstock from the top, and it may not be noticeable, but it is there, is that some of the ink from your design has bled through the paper onto this cardstock. So this cardstock, you want to toss it. Like, you don't want to use it again, because this ink could transfer to other designs you're working on, and you don't want to make that mistake. And because it's a fairly light image, you might mix it up. So right now I'm going to toss that and throw it in the trash. So then we want to make sure this is completely cool. You will burn yourself if you do not. And then we're just going to peel back this tape and reveal the magic. So you can compare, this is what the original drawing was, and this is how much brighter it gets once it gets pressed onto your coaster. Now these coasters are ready to use. This ink has infused into the surface. You don't have to put anything else on the top. You just start using them right now. So we did our coaster here with the markers. This is our coaster with the infusible ink transfer sheets. So this was what the transfer sheet looked like. And then using basically the same method, I transferred this design to a different coaster. I've let it cool completely. And now I'm going to lift it up and reveal that gorgeous design. So you can see the difference between what the transfer sheet looked like and what it looks like after it's pressed. So now I have some gorgeous coasters, and now you can compare. So this is what you would do with the pens. This is what you do with the transfer sheets. So two different looks, but kind of the same product and equally as amazing. Alright, here's an example where you need your tweezers. So I pressed this coaster and I peeled back the transfer sheet, and most of it came off with the transfer sheet, but there's a couple of small pieces where the ink sheet itself did not come off. You can use the tweezers and grab that piece and pull it back, and then remove it from the coaster itself. So here's a look at the solid transfer instead of the patterned, and here is a piece of that before it's pressed. So you can see the color change and how bright the blue gets once you press it onto your project. So this is a tote bag, so part of the tote bag line from Cricut, and we're actually going to do another tote bag and learn a different technique. So first thing for the tote bag, you're going to want to put the Easy Press mat inside the tote bag and cover the entire thing with a piece of white cardstock. So I've used white cardstock throughout this video to apply my designs to various substrates. So it is important that it's white or very light colored so it doesn't bleed onto whatever you're pressing it on with the heat you're applying. Alright, so I have my white cardstock inside and I have my Easy Press mat inside. Now it's also important that your Easy Press mat and your Easy Press itself be as large as the design that you're pressing. So don't press any design that you don't have an Easy Press that will fit onto it, because you can only press this once. So you press it down once, you don't press it and then move the Easy Press and press it a second time. So you just need to do one press with the infusible ink. Now, layering. So the next part we need to do for the tote bag itself is to take a fresh lint roller and remove any lint from the surface. So this is an important step. And also for tote bags, onesies, that type of thing, you'll want to watch the seam and not get your Easy Press on the seam. So we want to get our Easy Press off of that seam when we press. And then we're actually going to cover with some butcher paper. And we're going to heat this for 15 seconds to get out any moisture. So it is important that it's butcher paper and not something like parchment paper or freezer paper or something like that. The butcher paper is actually been tested by Cricut, and so it is important that you actually use butcher paper. Some comes with your infusible ink transfer sheets, but you can purchase butcher paper at the store or on Amazon as well if you need extra. So we can talk about layering while this cools down and our Easy Press heats up. Okay, so I have here one design, and it's out of a patterned infusible ink transfer sheet. I want to add a small portion of a blue, solid blue wave right in here to this project. So the first thing you need to do is when you're in Design Space, cut out, have a area that doesn't have anything in it for your second layer. So design it so that your second layer fits right in there where there's not anything. So you want to use the slice function for that. And I do have a video on the slice function if you need that. And then we're actually going to take these pieces off of the backing paper that it's on, and we're going to add them to the backing paper for this patterned infusible ink transfer sheet. And I'm going to add them in approximate location, but it just depends on what you're working on. You may want to get them more exact. And now everything is on one transfer sheet. And like I said before, you don't want to press and then press again, so you don't want to do layering traditionally where you would press one time, add the second layer, and press the second time. You want to add these to the backer sheet for the main part of the design so that you can press it all at once. So you could layer as many colors as you wanted to on one design using the same method. So now this is cool. So we're going to add our design to this tote bag. Remember, it has the Easy Press mat covered with cardstock inside. We've already done the lint roller. We just want to make sure this is straight and where we want it. Press it down well so that your transfer sheet is adhered to your fabric so it stays in place. So we're going to cover that with butcher paper, and then we're going to press for the 40 seconds at 385, and we want to make sure we're applying pressure to the handle and pressing down, and then we also want to make sure that we're getting the entire thing covered in one press and that we're not on any seams, remember, for a tote bag or a onesie or something like that. Then once it's beeped, it's done with its press, and we just want to be careful when we lift it, so we don't want to shift anything as we lift the Easy Press, and then we'll put it back onto the base. Now we want to let this cool before we lift everything off. This is cool. You can lift your butcher paper. You can lift this liner sheet right off. Just carefully peel back and make sure everything is transferred. You have a gorgeous ink design all within a couple of minutes. And for this one, once again, you can see the difference in the colors from what it looks like out of the package and what the infusible ink looks like when it's actually applied to your substrate. So huge difference, and it really makes it pop. So now we're going to press a shirt, and we're going to talk about layering the infusible ink transfer sheets with a design that I drew with the infusible ink pens. So first, let's talk about how you do the shirt. So I have my shirt down on my Easy Press mat, and then I'm going to put cardstock on the inside. Again, it needs to be white and enough to cover all the area where you will be adding a design, just to protect the back of your shirt from any ink that may bleed through. And then we want to use a fresh lint roller and roll the area. Another thing with the lint roller is that you want to roll the entire area that the Easy Press will be sitting on. So in this case, a 9x9 area, even though my design might not cover that entire area. And once we lint roll it, we'll put a piece of butcher paper over the top. And so this is a V-neck shirt, so again, I want to watch that seam, and I don't want to get my Easy Press on that seam, especially when I'm pressing the design itself. So we're going to give it some pressure for about 15 seconds and get the moisture out of the shirt. You also want to make sure that your butcher paper is large enough that the Easy Press sits on it completely and doesn't hang off the edge, so you don't want the Easy Press directly on the shirt itself. We're going to remove this butcher paper and we're going to let this cool. What we're going to layer a design that says mermaid that's been cut out of the infusible ink sheet. And then I used the pen on laser copy paper and I wrote vibes only. Now it's backwards because it's supposed to be mirrored, and this will go underneath this. So the first thing I did was I trimmed the carrier sheet on the infusible ink as close as I could, and I also want to trim the area around my lettering as close as I can. And I think I want to trim a little more off close to the V. So that gives us plenty of room to be able to layer that together. Then for this project, you'll also need the heat resistant tape from Cricut. So we'll need a couple pieces of that to hold down the laser copy paper while we press our shirt. And then we want to lay down first our mermaid design and get it into place wherever we want it on the shirt. And then once that is in place, we'll put down our words that we wrote with the infusible ink pens. And then I'm going to cut a couple of pieces of this heat resistant tape. And I'm going to tape down the words that I did with the pen. Now remember, when we talked about layering, we don't want to do this in 2 presses. We want to do it all at one time. So we need to get these both on the shirt at one time. So we can do 1 press that covers both. Alright, so we have everything ready. Everything's down. We'll want to cover this with the butcher paper once again. So we'll cover this with the butcher paper. And we'll add our easy press. And we'll hit the button and let it count down for the 40 seconds. And then once again, when that beeps and it's done, we want to lift straight up. Try not to disturb our stack. And then we'll let this cool completely. Then we'll remove our butcher paper, and you might be able to see that the words themselves, some of the ink bled onto the butcher paper. So we'll want to be sure to throw this away and not use it for another project. And then we can lift our mermaid design. And we can lift our words. And there we have an infusible ink shirt with both the infusible ink transfer sheets and the infusible ink pens. So I had a ton of fun making these projects. So this is my shirt and this is how it turned out. So I'm in love with the combination here of the infusible ink sheets with the pens, like the combo of the two. And then I actually made this tote bag to show what the solid infusible ink transfer sheets could do. And then we also did some coasters, and I did a couple different designs so I could show you the difference between the pens versus the infusible transfer sheets. Now these are the square coasters. They also have a round ceramic coaster. So just be aware that whatever substrate you choose, whether it's the tote bag, the shirts, the bodysuits for infants, the toddler shirts, the coasters, either type, the instructions may be different for each type. So when you open the package of whatever blank you're using, or even your package of infusible ink transfer sheets, it'll give you a website to go to. Head to that website, look up the instructions for the blank you're using, and follow those exactly so you get the results that you want. And then we also made this tote bag, which combines 2 different infusible ink transfer sheets. So we talked about layering the 2 together. So June 21st, you will want to head to Michael's and get your hands on some of this and play around with it. I guarantee you, you will love the look and feel of this. So there's nothing that I can do with pictures or video to show you the amazing look and feel of this product. The ink is actually in the surface, and like, it's not going anywhere. It doesn't stretch out, it doesn't crack or anything. When you pull on it, it's amazing, amazing product. So what can you expect next here on YouTube? I also took a shirt, Cricut approved shirt, and added some hearts to it. Why did I do this? So on this side, I added infusible ink hearts. So I added some patterned, added some solid color, and then I added a heart with the pen up here. On this side, I added hearts with iron-on. Sport Flex, regular, foil, and patterned. All on the same shirt. What am I going to do with this shirt? I am going to run this thing through the laundry until I see a difference between iron-on and infusible ink. So what infusible ink is supposed to not crack over time. It's supposed to last a long time, like last as long as this shirt would last and still look good and just like it was the day you pressed it. So it allows you to get those professional results right at home without investing in a huge big bunch of machinery that you would need to for sublimation. So this brings that technology to the home crafter in such a simple and easy way that it's amazing. So let's put it to the test. I'm going to run this through the laundry as many times as I can, and I'm going to try to give you updated results here on YouTube. So what do you need to do? First of all, give us a thumbs up on this video if you liked it. Second thing to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our Cricut videos that we'll be putting out weekly, but look for an update on infusible ink in a few weeks. I hope to show you the shirt again in a few weeks, show you an update, show you what's happening with the shirt, and which one lasts longer, who's going to be the winner. I think Infusible Ink's going to be the winner, but I want to see it with my own eyes. And if you do too, you want to stay tuned and subscribe to this channel. So thank you all so much for joining me today. I had a blast playing with Infusible Ink. I cannot wait to buy all the things, all the blanks, all the colors, all the patterns, so I can make tons of different projects with Infusible Ink. So stay tuned right here. If you want to see more projects with Infusible Ink, I will have them for you regularly, I hope, as soon as the product is released. So thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.